to make change, I think you need to organize environments in a way that love can be demonstrated and deployed. I think if people are in environments that are filled of love and productivity and self-improvement on a scale that is not me versus you, but me versus me, I think you can really cultivate a spirit of camaraderie that will only affect your bottom line in a positive way.
Hey, what's up, guys? Spencer Smith here, host of the Self-Funded with Spencer podcast, sponsored by Pareto Health, ClaimDoc, and PlanSight. Enjoy today's episode.
Yeah, he wrote a book called Built to Move, and it's like a very condensed version of Supple Leopard, how he takes all that kind of advice and puts into actionable steps and tests that you can test for performance.
Okay.
Being able to come down to the floor into crisscross applesauce and get up has I want to say 80% correlation to how long you will live.
So what, can you use your hands to get up and down?
For every point that you use is a minus point. So if you get below 8 out of 10, if you get below 8, you are considered fair and you need to improve. Below 5, you really need to consider physical fitness.
Don't let me forget before I'm going to try this. So I have to get down and up out of crisscross applesauce.
I can't get up.
Hands.
But I can use a hand to get up.
I'm trying to think how I could get, I
can get down. That's fine. But like things like hip mobility, leg strength to be able to get up from the floor, right? You need just not only strength, but mobility to be able to lean forward in that position and come up.
Yeah.
So then he gives you kind of different practices to practice to help you with that. Okay. So couch stretch is one.
Fan of the couch stretch.
Sitting on the floor more often in your evening is another. So 10 minutes a day will dramatically change your ability to get up and down from the floor.
Any particular position on the floor?
He prefers either crisscross applesauce or one leg cross, other leg extended, some kind of cross position.
Okay.
Yep. Wild, but when you hear like these things, you're just, if you're like.
But I look at my daughter can do the front and side splits at 6. You know what I mean? My wife actually can still do the splits, the front splits.
Mine too.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, I look at that and they can sit in, what is the pose? The squat where, people, I think they refer to it the third world squat, but it's like you can sit, you can get all the way down where your butt is essentially on your heels, and you can sit in a squat position. They call it a third world squat.
When you squat and your compound movement at the gym, how low do you go?
So when I actually squat with weight, I don't try to break parallel to the floor, but I try to break 90.
Okay.
I'm close. But, do you follow that guy he's real big on 90 degrees joint movements and like sticking at 90 rather than going parallel?
For athletic purposes, I agree.
Okay.
There's no point.
But not for longevity then.
Not for long. So you think use it or lose it principle applies, period. That's the thing. If you don't use that extended range of motion, you'll lose it.
Yeah.
So, and how many times is my 6'5" self going to have to bend over like that? Actually, plenty. Picking up my son, picking things up. If I want to hang out with him, if I need to have a serious conversation with him, I'm probably crouching down and having that conversation. And being able to get up and down from that position is all predicated with my time spent in that position. If you don't spend time in those positions, you don't own them.
Well, you mentioned couch stretching. I've been doing a lot of that. The Jefferson curl, where you use a weighted, you familiar with Jefferson?
Describe it.
So essentially, you would bend over to touch your toes, right? Well, Jefferson curl, you kind of arch your back and round it as you go down, but you have weight in your hand. Yeah, so to extend you beyond your natural point, with the idea, the guy's premise is everybody should be able to put their palms on the floor, which
Agreed.
I'm not that far, but I'm also not that close either. But things like that, the hip mobility. I struggle with hip mobility, I think, as a result of playing soccer. I have good knees. My ankles are fine. My hips are where the majority of the wear and tear came from.
Right.
So being very intentional about the pigeon stretch or other things to open up the hips. If I don't, tight IT bands, the entire chain goes off. I can't get in the squat depth, all that stuff.
So in that book, Built to Move, they outline what the sedentary classifications are. If you work out for an hour, 4-6 days a week, if you're still not getting 6,000 to 8,000 steps a day, you're classified as sedentary.
So you can work out 4 to 6 days a week for an hour, but if you don't get how many steps again?
6,000 to 8,000. Because you think about it, your body moving, how much movement are you actually doing in an hour? You may be bench pressing, sure. You may be squatting.
Sitting on the bench in between, and I get it. Okay.
So when you move, your joints are lubricated, and the system kind of flows. Think your digestion works, your circulatory system works better. If you're not, you think about how much time people spend at desk. Things like glute amnesia because they're just sitting. Like when you're sitting, you're not sitting, you're sitting. And you're like in these weird shapes. So walking helps you correct your posture and it allows you to resume a natural movement pattern. So you do that for 6,000 to 8,000 steps a day. That's about 3 to 4 miles a day. You're not having to worry about things like fat storage or improper muscle patterns or just bad posture because you give your body this opportunity. Movement is medicine, but you can't, until you know exactly what the metric is for pass fail, it's hard to just say, I'm just gonna move. How do you quantify just move? You need to quantify that.
Interesting. We pull it back to your belly too, because we were missing good stuff. We're rolling right now, and I don't think we choose whether or not to keep it. But I'm like, I don't want to stop Durrell because he's on a good roll right now.
Oh shit,
man, you are animated though. You're telling me like I was watching you earlier where you're doing your steps. I'm like, you can't do the steps on the couch, man. I'm sorry. You're gonna be confined, but we'll get it in other ways.
Hand placement.
So why don't we'll kick off the podcast since I already gave you a hard time about all the movement.
Love it.
So Durrell Finch with BioCoach, and what is your title? I don't think I even asked what your title is.
So Director of Strategic Partnerships is my technical title. I might be VP, but I think when you're in startup culture, you just wear so many hats.
Dude, I've been there. Okay, and I want to talk about kind of the origins and the state of the company and all that good stuff, but I totally get it, right? It's like whatever your title is doesn't matter because you're doing 15 different things because you have to out of necessity, right? But so why don't we frame up what the conversation will be about today, broadly speaking? So we're going to talk about diabetes. We're going to talk about nutritional interventions. We're going to talk about, these GLP-1 drugs that are really popular. But why don't you, if you could for a second, before we get into your backstory, Durrell, what is BioCoach? How would you frame it up?
So if you ask us and we're just talking about it, we would say the prevention and treatment of metabolic related diseases, illness.
Okay.
When you say metabolic or metabolism, people don't know what that means. So in layman's terms, giving people the tools to make lifestyle modification.
Okay.
Is the easiest way I can say that as it relates to your metabolism. But you have to say metabolism because everyone has one. And depending on how yours functions, puts you on a point in that spectrum.
Okay. Well, I like that you frame it up that way because we'll use Ozempic as an example before we'll go back into this later. But you see this, it's a popular drug. Everybody's talking about it right now. Everybody wants it. But what isn't talked about enough, and what I liked when we had our first conversations, is the lifestyle intervention as it relates to said drug.
Right.
So it's not just pop this pill or take this injection or whatever it may be and fix everything. We know that doesn't work.
No.
What requirements are set in motion so that if you do get access to this drug or you're taking it, that we're also making sure the whole person around the consumption of that drug is being altered as well. Pareto Health is the manager of the largest employee benefits group captive in the United States. And it's also now the main sponsor of the Self-Funded with Spencer podcast. I chose to partner with Pareto Health for 3 main reasons. Number 1, their dedication to improving the world of health benefits. Number 2, their mission to reduce volatility and to make self-funding simple for mid-sized employers. And number 3, the strength and scale of their program. With over 2,300 member groups and more than $1 billion of stop-loss premium under management, Pareto Health is the most robust solution of its kind in the country, period. Stay tuned for more information because I'm sure I'll be featuring them on an episode of the podcast very soon. Visit Pareto Health at paretohealth.com or follow them on LinkedIn to stay up to date on the latest news and developments.
Yeah, I think in order to answer that question, I have to give you some pretext.
Yeah.
These drugs work. They are exceptional at cutting fat. You use Ozempic, which is semaglutide, you're going to lose somewhere between 10 to 15% of your total mass. Tirzepatide, 15 to 20. Tirzepatide is actually stronger and more powerful.
So 15 to 20% of your total body mass.
Total
so
body
not just
mass.
fat, body mass.
Right.
Wow, okay.
Now, how it works is by cutting off signaling at your brain and at your gut. That signals you're hungry, while also slowing down the rate of digestion in your gut. So people on these drugs aren't feeling hungry. So as someone who has a bad relationship with food, it is a great opportunity to learn an intervention while you don't have this voice.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
Now, another side effect of these drugs is your kind of hunger and rate in which you need to kind of satiate yourself is also reduced. So if your stomach is X big for the sake of theatrics, you are now shrinking it. So now you have this much space to be able to make the right decisions for your health, right? Because we eat for health, not just because we want to be out, right? So I need to make sure in this small space, I'm putting in the correct macronutrient profile to make sure that this 15% mass isn't muscle mass as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
People don't understand muscle
And I
is
would
the
say
metabolic
naturally,
driver.
I mean, I took us too far down this path, and I
It's a
want to
rabbit
ask
hole.
so many questions. Let me get to know you first, because you didn't just show up and become, the VP of sales or of strategic development, business development for BioCoach. You have, I think, an interesting story too, and I think it probably, to me, suggests why you're so passionate about this subject. So let's go back a little bit first before we go forward.
Okay.
Tell us about your, where you grew up, you as a person, man.
Okay, so Durrell Finch, San Francisco native, born and raised. I was fortunate enough to be raised in a household where my parents cooked all the time.
Okay.
I think you call it an almond parent, granola parent. My parents cooked, and we went out for special occasions.
Okay.
Things like soda, we didn't really have access to that. And
Was that intentional by your parents to instill that in you, or is that just how they naturally were themselves?
So.
Okay.
I think so. My dad would always work out in the garage. I remember as a kid wanting to go downstairs and work out with him and being so interested in what he was doing and why. You fast forward, I went to school at University of Tulsa, played football, full-ride scholarship. I was a lineman. It was about 250, 255, my heaviest. I initially left school and wanted to play in the NFL. That's the route any athlete you want to play at the highest level.
Of course, yeah.
Right. How good was I? Questionable. But I went to the Cardinals practice squad, gave it my best, and they were like, Durrell, frankly, you're just too small. We like you.
That's crazy to me, because you're 6'5", right?
Yeah.
And you said you were at 255 at the time, and you said you needed to be 280.
Yeah.
It's hard to me even fathom, because on your frame though, 280 probably doesn't look that extreme, but you were telling me that 25-pound difference or whatever would be enormous for you, right?
Just me maintaining that 250, 255, I was already going above and beyond. I would wake up, set alarms to have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I would stash muscle milk behind tackling dummies at practice and drink it hot. We would sit at what's called the farm table, and you would just eat. But my relationship with food actually was changed because I saw food as a tool.
Okay, yeah.
And I would say, for me, finding enjoyment in the food has been my biggest obstacle, because I don't necessarily eat to enjoy. I eat to pursue an outcome.
Yeah.
Which isn't always the best, frankly.
Well, honestly, I'm the same way. I enjoy some of the things I eat, but we were talking macros, getting protein. You obviously had protein synthesis we'll maybe talk about, but I eat for a specific outcome. I don't eat because it's the most pleasurable food always to eat.
Right.
You do miss that sometimes, where it's there's a social component,
I wish I was a foodie.
I'm not really either. I'm give me a hamburger patty or granted, a steak tastes pretty darn good, but I'm eating that steak because of an outcome, not because it's a steak, purely a palatable steak. So then how did that though? I'm curious. I want to ask a follow-up to that.
Okay.
Because you're eating so much that you're essentially force feeding yourself because you need a certain number of calories to be in a surplus. How did you feel physically having to eat that much?
Not good.
Okay.
I think eating for size and not eating, for people hearing this, like, oh, you got to eat whatever you want. But when you don't want to eat and you have to eat, it is a special type of kind of purgatory, because you are stuck doing this thing to get to the other side. And as a competitor, if I don't do this, it's going to negatively affect my ability to move another human. It's tough. And I would argue it's harder than not eating.
I actually would agree, man, because so there was a soccer player that I played with in college that he decided he didn't want to play anymore. Okay. Got really into bodybuilding, extremely. He was a humongous guy. He had the genetic capacity to be really good.
Must be nice.
But I saw him eat, and he would eat a dozen hard-boiled eggs in the morning, and just almost you're having to choke him down and wash him down with water because he wanted to get his macros in. But I'm just seeing him suffer almost to the point of making himself sick, because he's stretching his stomach out. He's eating well beyond satiety, but he's trying to get macros in. And I go, man, that actually looks like suffering to me.
But if you watch what people's perception of what getting healthy is, they think it's that. It's this bodybuilding framework where I have to eat in order to get this muscle. And if I don't get to my protein offering, then I'm going to be small. And it's very much a not sustainable process.
Yeah, it's body dysmorphia. I mean, it absolutely is.
I mean, we all have it at some level, but
yeah.
like being able to maintain that dysmorphia in a healthy way. If I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh man, I can fix that. Okay. I go to the gym and it helps me to go and participate in a, I would say, aggressive way.
Yeah.
But looking at your body and being like, I suck, and then that limits your ability to take action, I think that's when you've gone too far on the spectrum.
Well, yeah. If you have that, I suck.
Right.
Well, you're probably going to do some really extreme things as a response, and you end up having super physiological levels of muscle and just look. I mean, from a male perspective too, I'm a little guy. I'm 5'8". I've told you I walk around like 165. Like for me to want to be big, I would look odd at my frame having a huge amount of muscle to where you go, now I took it so far that it ends up actually being a detriment to my health and my life for some obsessive pursuit of additional muscle mass.
And what's the cost of that mass?
What is the cost? Yeah, absolutely. What's the cost of that mass? Well, again, you and I think we could have a 3-hour podcast, and I'm trying to do, a service to the audience, and I'll keep it on point. But I do want to actually talk about your education because, again, just because you're an athlete doesn't mean you know what you know. You obviously studied this in college and then applied it post-college. So what did you study, and then what was your career after football?
Yeah, so in college, my actual major was psychology and business. And I think the psychology and training has served me more so than my actual credentials. But leaving college, not getting into the NFL, I was fortunate enough to have athletes already in my Rolodex because they are my teammates.
Of course, yeah.
But getting the certification, making sure I was a certified personal trainer, getting certified in pain management, getting certified in movement, and particularly biomechanics, and understanding how people move and why is important in athletics because I am trying to improve someone 1%. That 1% can mean the difference between a catch or a drop. It can mean the difference between injury or non-injury.
It could be the difference in a contract or no contract, right? You
100%.
get to that level, which could be tens of millions of dollars at stake, right? But then you said that it's so imperceptible almost being able to detect. How do I take an extremely good athlete and make him just a little bit better? Like how you almost don't know until you retest or something.
And they comply with everything you say.
Yeah.
Because they're incentivized through their performance.
Yeah.
So the training environment is one where participant and teacher are both have buy-in.
Yeah.
Whereas in a Gen Pop population, it's not always that simple. But I think the psychology comes into play because you're understanding an actual person's life and behaviors and how it correlates to what has happened now in their current state.
Yeah.
And you're having to manipulate that.
Yeah. So then but you weren't just training just high-level athletes, right? Or did you start there and then morph into this kind of general population training as well?
Yeah, so COVID kind of rocked the industry back in the day.
Sure.
So a lot of us gravitated towards gyms because we wanted the safety and the brand image of that name. So for me, it was Lifetime. Lifetime Fitness is great. If you've never gone, go and you'll experience a whole new level of what a gym is.
Oh, I'm a member. I see your Lifetime water bottle as well.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll hold it up later in a picture.
That's it.
Yeah.
But being in that environment, you're training high earners. If you want an hour of my time at Lifetime, you're paying $150 an hour, and
that's the start.
That's the start.
Yeah,
and we're doing intakes. We're going through the whole process. But when you have that level of commitment, and for some that level of commitment means nothing, but to be in that gym, to have those resources, you are a type A person, and you are used to achieving.
Yeah.
So they weren't athletes, but they did understand a certain level of I need to do this to get where I want to go. And being able to tweak the physiology and the education in a way that it applied to them was, I think, the biggest gift I got from training Gen Pop and watching them kind of make leaps and bounds in their development.
Oh, absolutely. I could see that, right? Where you have on the one scale, the high level athlete where that 1% difference makes a huge difference in their career, but you look at them or observe them, you don't necessarily detect it, right? But then you have somebody that's detrained or been undertrained for a long period of time, and you help them drop 25 pounds or 30 or 40 pounds and or also get stronger and probably add very large percentage of weight to call it a bench press.
Right.
Where you go, oh, I can really see your progress.
Yep.
I could see how that'd be rewarding because that might set them on a whole new path for their life. And
I'm telling you, you get like a doctor, and which doctor, lawyers, all these professions that people are really trying to, that are sought after, they're some of the most unhealthy because of their time constraints.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And being able to move properly and giving people the tools to then, outside of their careers, achieve other things that they've always thought about. Being able to go on that hike. I live in Arizona, so being able to hike Camelback or go on a hiking trip or go on a ski trip and be able to crush it on the slopes, and your wife gives you that compliment. You're like, wow. Or for a woman, being able to do pull-ups. I think there's something empowering about harnessing and accessing strength that you didn't necessarily believe you had.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then you now can live and do things that you never thought you could, and you become a different person.
I just hearing you say that, I think it'd probably be really rewarding as a trainer, see somebody exceed like a perceived limit that they had before. Like, oh, I could never do that. Have them, because that's a self-imposed limitation or constraint.
Right.
They said, oh, yeah, I'm overweight, so I'll never be able to do a pull-up. And you work with them over time and help them progress, and you show them you can do a pull-up. Then they start going, well, what other constraints have I put on my life that I didn't know I had that I could probably also overcome? That's got to be really, really rewarding personally to see that happen. And to know you helped them do that.
It creates bonds that I have to this day.
Yeah.
Like my clients are friends, and they call me for Christmases, Thanksgivings. I check in on them. I'll write their programs when I can. But when you give someone access to that, I'm connecting with these people on personal levels. So giving them that, unlocking that, having that personal moment, the journey we had to take together to get there, it creates a bond that can't be broke.
That's awesome, man. Well, I want to go one step into BioCoach. I want to keep going that direction. But the one more step before we go to BioCoach, I know it's really popular these days to talk about your morning routine. And you and I were talking about your morning routine, and you have it down to a dialed in science, dude. Yeah. So I'd love if you don't mind sharing, kind of, because you're a really fit guy. You obviously take this to a really high level scientifically.
Yep.
What does your morning routine look like?
So I tell all my clients systems are what make the difference for anyone engaging. So for me, my morning routine, I have a kiddo. I have another kiddo on the way.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
That's awesome, man.
My mornings are the only time that I have free. So between the times of 4 and 6 a.m. are my time. So my goal is to get out of bed. I legit get out of bed, stand up. And that's just to accomplish that first thing of like, I'm out of bed, I did it.
Yep.
From there, it's typically downhill. All my clothes are laid out. Put my gym clothes on. Gym bag's already packed. Creatine shake is already in the refrigerator cold for me. I take it, I'm out the door. For me, I don't know if everyone else's gym has a cold plunge. Lifetime has a cold plunge. Yeah. Shameless plug. I'll get in the cold plunge because you want to do that in the morning. It's like a shock to your fight or flight system, which boosts your adrenaline, which will help you in your lifts. It's also it's great for recovery. It's great. And
so you do like a 2-minute cold plunge, right?
2 minute.
So get to the gym, switch under your bathing suit or whatever, drop in that cold plunge. 2 minutes, you're out.
Yes.
Get back into workout clothes, and then
5 minutes to do that.
5 minutes.
So 2 minutes to be done in the cold plunge, 5 minutes to get dressed, be on the gym floor, warm up on a stair stepper for 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'll then do a mobility kind of movement prep for another 10 minutes. My strength lifts take about 15 minutes where I'm doing a heavy compound movement. Okay. I'll do some auxiliary movements for about maybe another 10, 15 if I'm feeling it. If not, I jump right into my Metcon, which is an AMRAP, stands for as many rounds as possible. Just a time for me to play.
And Metcon, metabolic conditioning, just make sure,
metabolic conditioning, but it's like movement practice that produces the cardio effect.
It is like a HIIT style?
It can be HIIT. It can, I prefer HIIT. Okay. Honestly, but it can be like steady state cardio if I want it to be that and I was beat down. But the goal is to have some kind of cardio event at the end. So that way my workout always has a strength event, it has a movement prep, so modality, and then it has a cardio event. So I'm covered in all planes.
And you ended the cardio, and do you do some sort of cool down or mobility stretching, or do you just go?
No, the cool down is typically my walk to the locker room because I'm trying to get out of there.
Yeah, because what I loved about when you were describing your morning routine, and I don't, people that are just listening won't be able to see it, but you were literally, I could see you were stepping from point to point in moving.
Yeah.
But that's, to me, it showed how precise you've got this thing dialed in. And that's what I was really impressed by, because we were talking about workouts off camera, and it's like you've got your day dialed in. Those first couple hours are exactly the same. They're repeatable.
Yep.
They're scalable. It's how you start your day, how you set the tone, and then you come home and then you start to get into dad mode and work mode after that, right? But I just love that because this is it's one of those non-negotiables for your day. This is how I'm going to start my day. Those patterns, those behaviors become habit, become lifestyle. That's how you really, really establish good practices for the long haul.
I don't know if I could be an advocate the way I am if I wasn't practicing.
You got to live the or walk the walk, right? Yeah. Absolutely, man. So then when does BioCoach enter into the framework in your career?
Yeah, fitness is great. You get to impact life, but it becomes an addiction and you're trading time for money, which that's every job. But in fitness, if I'm not working, there's a loss somewhere.
Okay.
So for me, I was like, man, you know what? One of my clients, again, well-to-do, it's Lifetime, you should go.
We're going to have a super cut of every time Lifetime is mentioned on this podcast.
That's it.
I'll show it to him when I go a couple days.
Oh, God, maybe they'll reduce my membership. But no, I wanted to get into tech, and I was really interested with where it was going. Being from San Francisco, you're kind of a tech by just proximity, a techie by proximity. So I was fortunate enough to get linked with BioCoach. I was ready to kind of do that as a hobby, get full into tech and cloud. BioCoach, I was introduced by BioCoach to a recruiter. Like, hey, we really think this is a great fit for you, given your background and your love for exercise sports science. I talked to Matt and the team. They're like, well, yeah, you're impacting life, but your hourly rate is $150. The average person can't afford you. How would you be willing to do this and actually be able to affect change at a greater scale?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, looking at the tech, hearing about what they wanted to do and how they were doing it, sold.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Yeah. So let's reset the foundation of what it is again, or what its purpose is. Okay. And then we'll differentiate it from like a traditional wellness program, and then talk about like the employer level. Like this is obviously, I told you the audience is predominantly consultants or people that revolve around employee benefits. So we'll talk about it through that lens. But again, like to set the foundation, what is BioCoach functionally established to do?
BioCoach is functionally established to teach people and almost present high-level educational pieces in a palpable, digestible format for people to understand and take action on.
Okay.
The goal is for people to be able to take their biomarkers. So right now we have blood, and that's through a finger prick. With the goal, we have a CGM. We just got it, thank God. But those are the biomarkers we're measuring. So with that, understanding how food affects your blood sugar, being able to take our learnings and apply it to what you're actually seeing in your actual body. So you take like a doctor like Sean Baker, who is carnivore, for example. He will have a quest, is what we call it, in our app environment.
Okay.
You can learn how to go carnivore. Are we promoting carnivore? No.
Yeah.
But are there benefits to going carnivore? Sure. In the same way that each drug has a prescription and a use case and side effects, same thing. People need to know what they're doing, why, and what are the benefits, and then be able to measure how it's affecting them. So BioCoach is essentially giving you access to an expert, giving you access to new industry content as it relates to health, and allowing you to apply it in a way that's applicable to you.
Okay.
And kind of taking you through that in a guided learning.
So what is a guided learning? Video modals, I presume, a lot of. You said they're almost like TikTok.
Yeah.
Which it's really funny, and I've been doing this at my company, Pareto, is talking about how do we take our own educational learnings, how do we take webinar style learnings and convert them into sort of digestible content or content that you see on TikTok and you might go, oh, I watched that video about something I've never watched before, but it was entertaining and engaging for 60 seconds.
Right.
Could you do the same thing with benefits captives? Could you do the same thing with insurance? You can do the same thing, right, with maybe complex topics about metabolism, but if you frame it in a way that's quick, easy, it's accessible for somebody that doesn't have that background, then they go, oh, that was interesting. Click, I want to learn more, right? Or you engage them at whatever level, but the style of content is sort of that modern way to learn. And so anyways, a long-winded way to say that sounds like that's what you guys are doing.
I think that's absolutely right. Because I think on TikTok, I've learned things all the way from how to cook a steak to how to, I don't know, you can learn how to ice luge if you want to. If you're interested in the subject matter and it's presented in a way that you can digest it, I think it allows people to actually be able to tune in, because attention spans are this big, and that's a real thing. And you have to change the way in which you deploy information to people to accommodate that.
Yeah.
I can't just, so you think like you leave the doctor's office, were just told you're diabetic. They're going to give you a pamphlet that's like 12 pages long about what diabetes is and how to manage it. You're not going to read that.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
No.
Well, I think about, you mentioned the carnivore diet earlier, and I have subscribed to that in spurts, and I actually believe in its efficacy for certain situations. But if you give somebody, oh, here, go watch this hour-long TED Talk about carnivore diet, they're probably not going to do it. But if you go, here is the 60-second entry level, what is the carnivore diet? Check, 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 3 bullet points, boom, done. If you're interested, click here to learn more.
Yep.
You've planted a seed in their mind that now can start to grow.
Right.
But you made it so it wasn't so overwhelming to start, where it's not 0 to 100. It's like 0 to step 1. And then we build on step 1 after that.
And the goal of the platform is to give people those opportunities to learn about all things related to metabolic related functioning and health.
Yeah.
You know, your metabolism is influenced by how much muscle mass you have in your body. You know, we have Chris Palmer. He just came out with a book called Brain Energy, and the link between your gut, metabolic health, and your cognition. So things like schizophrenia and depression can be solved just with diet. People don't know that, and at the very least don't know how to do that. So if we present that to you in a way, we say, hey, look at this tagline. What? How do I do that? Click. And step by step, you're kind of walk through this journey on how to do that and how to measure that for yourself. It's valuable.
Well, how does what you guys do differ from what we would think is a traditional wellness program, right? Because I was telling you, our industry has a little bit of an inherent skepticism of wellness, simply because a lot of things get promised, right? And a lot of things sound really good on paper, but the actual reality of the outcomes didn't always measure up. And so you have a lot of them come, flash in the pan, and unfortunately leave. So what is it, the way that you guys establish this program, that you think is different from that?
Yeah. First off, I think the program has to be supported at some way, and I think support is generated by outcomes. If you are doing what you're saying that you can do, eventually the cream rises to the top, so to speak. We are a tech company first. Okay. So everything we do is AI tech driven, which means data is important to us. Making sure that we are getting data points on all of our, we call them members, and sharing that with them. Right, and telling them the importance of that data. But for the employer, being able to say like, obviously you have to scramble it, but my population was X, we now are Y, based on this program, and here are the reasons here are the steps on how they did that. I think is one way, but another way is getting the employer involved. Yeah, we're very transparent with what we can take on, and if the employer group is not one who's not only ready to financially, I guess, support change, but also ready to, I guess, be boots on the ground and be all in with their actions as well, it's probably not going to be a good fit.
So they need to actually commit to this, right? So because we talked about over coffee, the participation rates usually are the challenge, right? It's like, this thing would work if people would just do it. And most of the time it's like getting them to actually utilize the protocol is a challenge. Right. So whether that's enforcement or incentivization or a combination of both, right? You have to move humans to actually take that first step. So how are you getting or focusing on getting higher utilization?
PlanSight is a complete game changer in the world of insurance brokering. As a broker, you know how time-consuming and error-prone the traditional RFP process can be. Well, what if I told you there's a better way? PlanSight is the only end-to-end RFP solution on the market made specifically for benefits agencies. It's like having a superpower that gets you an average of 8 to 10 hours back per employer renewal per year. And the best part? PlanSight supports all carriers, all funding types, and all group sizes for over 20 different benefits. If you're ready to make your RFP process faster, more efficient, and more profitable, it's time to call PlanSight. Visit plansight.com now to book a free demo and discover the future of insurance renewals.
Yeah, first step is getting HR buy-in. You have to get C-suite HR buy-in, and at some level, right? They're probably not going to be doing jumping jacks with Susie in accounting, but they have to value the program and be an advocate for it. Making sure that we can talk to the environment internally. So our care team is great about making sure that the learning on a organizational level is structured in the sense that everyone is doing the same thing. And our semaglutide environment is totally different. We'll get to that later.
We'll get that,
And Gen Pop, no, in our normal environment.
Gen Pop sounds like something else. Right. You hold them hostage?
Normal environment. we incentivize the members to use our platform through BioBucks. So just if you want to learn about ketogenic dieting, you go through the 30-day course, just participation. You don't even have to necessarily score high marks on the test. By you participating in the learning, and we can, it's tech driven, so we know if you're participating or not. The AI will reward you based on your level of participation.
Okay.
So that's BioBucks. You can go to our marketplace and kind of use that currency to buy things you probably wouldn't take a risk on buying yourself. So Redmond's Real Salt, we have Carnivore Crisp in there. It's just different healthy things that, again, relate to your metabolism. The goal is to be like a Whole Foods for your metabolism. You go into Whole Foods and you just expect everything in there to be healthy. You don't even question it. You're just like, oh yeah. This must be good for me. And
it says organic on the bag, right?
Right. And advocacy is questionable, but the goal is to provide people with a marketplace of things that are good for them and incentivize to use these things to help them put it into their actual daily life.
Okay. So let's take an example of that. Let's say that based on my current situation, a ketogenic diet is recommended by BioCoach. Okay. So now I know that, and I've been educated, I passed the tests, I've got access to these BioBucks. Like, how do I shop, or how do I go get the food that I'm supposed to take? Like, what's the process for
all
that?
on the app. So let's say I can see my BioBucks. Let's say I want food delivered to me. Cool. We use Instacart for that. So the AI is going to say, okay, based on the things you like, what you're trying to accomplish, we're going to give you these recommendations. You have these things around you. Cool. I click, let's say, the cafe downstairs. Boop. I'm going to get specific recommendations based on what I'm trying to accomplish. So it's only going to be the good, the bad won't even be shown on the screen. I get to click that and I'll redeem my BioBucks to purchase that. Slice of bacon, avocado, whatever. Trying to stay on brand.
And so then these BioBucks, though, are they being sponsored by my employer and giving me a certain amount per month or something? How's that?
So there's different tiers. So if an employee, and we come in at a certain level and say, okay, we're going to give everyone $10 a month or $20 a month per their participation, and that's the cap that they can earn. Cool. On the employer level, being able to say, hey, these are different packages that you can sponsor. This is what that would mean for your population in terms of their engagement and their earnings potential. What are you ready to support? Cool. Great.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Well, now, I like that, though, and that is sort of begs the philosophical question that I've always had is like, where is the line of the employer's responsibility or obligation to their employees' health? And nutrition has always been this gray area for me. Like, I think even some employers are almost skeptical because every month it seems like some new diet protocol comes out that's, from Mediterranean diet to Atkins, it's like there's all these different names and forms, and the science seems to go waffle back and forth, but it does seem like the in vogue style of eating these days is that zero carb or low carb style diet. And it does, I think, this because there's actual evidence behind it. Long way to say, though, should my employer, be sponsoring a lifestyle modification around my diet and incentivizing eating patterns? That's a gray area. I do believe.
Can we talk about that?
That's why I'm bringing it up. I'm hoping that you have an opinion on this because I actually do believe that they should have some level of influence, especially if it's evidence-based and it can prove that we're working towards an outcome that makes you healthier, happier, more productive, higher quality of life. And there's maybe some training that needs to go around that. I do think that's possible and maybe is desirable. What is your opinion there?
I think, and again, when you talk to employers, everything is always the bottom line. So what's the average tenure of your workforce? How long does the average employee stay? How much investment do you make based on that? I get that, 100% business sense. But at some level, you have to understand that not doing anything is going to affect you. You're going to pay for it. So the culture in which you set and can kind of cultivate for every new person coming in can be one that you dictate and control, right? Now, at what level the participation, that will vary. But if everyone is doing it, it's almost peer pressure, but in a good way, But you think, am I going to pay for it in the front end, or am I going to kind of just wait and see and get hit with this semaglutide hammer and pay for it on the back end? And when that happens on the back end, you have to wait Like you have to wait for that person to get healthier. You're very dependent on that person participating in the program in hopes that they get healthier, but it's a hope.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas on the front end, participating, doing things like a sponsored lunch, doing things like a company-wide 5K and incentivizing that through premiums or BioBucks, however you want to incentivize a company trip at the end of the year. These are the things that get people started in the behaviors. The goal is to jumpstart them.
Yeah.
And once they feel the benefits of what it does for them, they look in the mirror, they can pick up their kids, they're not tired at the end of the day. You now are kind of intrinsically motivating that person to continue to take action.
I like that. I like the idea of jump-starting it because there's still a personal level of autonomy and accountability that is required
100%.
to do this for the long haul. You can jump-start it.
Yep.
You can give them the tools. You can even incentivize the participation. Eventually, that person is going to have to take onus
100%.
to a degree, right? And so I do like, perhaps that is the way that you can have these two worlds intersect, where the employer does act as the, let's call it the catalyst, if you will.
Yep.
And create an environment for that catalyst to take place.
100%.
Then the person has to pick it up from there, right?
Yep.
You said something earlier a moment ago that I actually think is relevant to a quote I read this week, and it's Charlie Munger. And he's basically saying if a company needs a new machine, yet they've decided not to buy that machine, well, they're already paying for it. They're paying for it because they don't have the machine they actually need and they weren't willing to invest in it.
Right.
So you said, oh, you know, like let's say I have somebody that's diabetic or needs that semaglutide. I'm going to pay for it one way or another. I might pay through it through incentivize behavior modifications and better food and better lifestyle, or I'm going to pay for it in a drug instead.
Right.
Either way, you're going to pay the piper. Which one do you want to pay?
And what's the ROI on that? Like you're paying for this drug, you're paying for this care and into this care model, or you can invest in culture, which will help you retain and even attract talent. Right? Like if I go to a workforce that everyone is kind of bought in, and again, I understand, I can hear brokers being like, well, not everyone's going to buy in. I get that. But if the large majority of the population is bought in, there's a healthy culture of healthy things being brought to the office and not your office donuts, not Halloween candy lingering in November. And if you still have Halloween candy, throw it away. You know, it's apples. It's a culture of having a happy hour without alcohol and with protein offerings and vegetables. It's a culture of going out together and bringing your families and doing a walk, or even a walk between calls, and you go with Susie from finance.
Yeah.
You know, that culture.
Hey, I'm going to take this Zoom over a walk today.
Come on, man.
instead.
There are opportunities that aren't being utilized, and I think if it is something that is permeating through an organization, that those opportunities are now seized. I'm going to seize those opportunities because everyone else is, and now it's okay.
I like that, yeah. Well, so then what do you say to perhaps the people that would be naysayers and say, well, yeah, that's fine, but not everybody can afford certain types of food, right? Or there's always that argument that it's more expensive to eat healthy, and I think to a degree that is true, although I've literally done my own semi-scientific study where I broke down the cost of foods, and if I were going to follow a certain eating protocol, how could I do it most efficiently, economically?
Yep.
And it's far less money than I spend grabbing food from the cafe each day, right?
Come on, man.
So but like that, there's an argument, right? So the guy or gal that makes $15 an hour and has to work 60 hours a week to make enough money to provide for their family.
Okay.
How do you get that person to change their behavior or be able to access certain things that might have a little bit higher price tag?
You first have to arm them with the knowledge of what to do.
Okay.
Because I think people rely too much on discipline, and discipline without proper knowledge and know-how is wasted.
Okay.
Right? If I don't know what to do, I'm not going to get the results. If I don't get the results, I'm not going to keep doing this intervention thing you're telling me to do. So first, teaching them what to do. But once you know that, it might not be I'm not saying it's glamorous. Like there's not, going to True Food is what we have in Arizona.
I love True Food.
It's amazing.
It's amazing,
But
yeah.
it's pricey.
It is pricey, yep.
It's not gonna be that glamorous, right? But cooking, going home, getting some ground beef, making tacos for your family and having leftover, that is cheap. It's cheaper than eating out, right? Because when you're eating out, you're not necessarily getting leftovers. You're not necessarily able to kind of have enough reserve for the next day. If I buy 2 pounds, 3 pounds of ground beef for a family of 3, that will probably serve me for multiple meals. And if not, I've only spent $10, $20 tops.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if I go out to eat $20 for a family of 3, that's on the low end. That's if you went to McDonald's.
Yeah, I don't even know how you could feed a family of 3 for $20
I
these
don't
days,
know.
man. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. But I mean, even you look at something like an egg. An egg is one of the most nutritious foods on the planet.
Right.
Even with egg prices going up, there's still less, 30 cents an egg or 20. I mean, something crazy cheap, right? So you can eat 4 eggs for $1 or whatever the number is. Add that in some ground beef, So there's ways around it, which are in an optimized world where money wasn't an issue.
Sure.
Okay, cool. I'm making compromises, but based on the compromises versus the alternative, which is like you said, going out and eating or getting McDonald's, getting a pizza to feed my family of 4, it's a night and day difference.
It's convenience, and then there is something to be said about convenience and like what that means for a family and what that means for the working professional. I get it. And
I get it too.
You have to account for that variable 100%. But to say that healthy food is more costly and that's the only reason why I won't participate in the practice of eating healthy, I think is inaccurate. And I think ultimately you are setting yourself up to pay for it like the employer on the back end.
Yeah, on the back end. Well, so let's talk about the back end now. That's a good way to kind of circle back around. Very good segue there. A lot of people will look at the wellness style interventions or a lifestyle type solution like this and want to know like an ROI of some degree. Like how do you measure outcomes or how do you measure the efficacy of what you guys are doing?
Sure. In the semaglutide environment, how we measure that is BMI and A1C.
Okay.
Right. So
actually, can you define semaglutide? Because I don't want to assume everybody understands what these things do. Right?
Yeah.
Can you just kind of
semaglutide is the chemical. It's oh my gosh, you're gonna.
And now I just threw you for
no. It's gonna come. I'm buffering.
You're buffering.
Jesus, our nurse is going to be like, Durrell, we talk about this all the time. I can't talk about the chemical compound. I can only talk about what it does.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. I just want to kind of put it in layman's terms so people understand the category.
So you have 2 different types. You have semaglutide and you have tirzepatide, and now you have like other variants kind of coming into play. But essentially, like I said earlier, cutting off signaling at the brain is the primary mechanism of those things.
Okay. That hunger signal itself?
Yeah. Okay. So like you talk about people's going out and fast food habits. That is, once you get in the system of convenience, it's hard to stop. It's hard to put the brakes on that, especially if you're eating for pleasure. If you're eating because you're sad, it's cold outside, you want ice cream to watch the movie, you get it. So if you're not having to feel like I want sugar, I need to eat or snack in between meals, you now have this room, a quiet space in which to think and measure.
Okay.
But yeah, semaglutide, tirzepatide are the 2 players, but I know Eli Lilly's coming out with their newest mixtape, so we'll see.
We'll see, yeah. But so going back on the subject of ROI, I didn't mean to throw you for a loop. I just want to make sure that people understood what we were kind of talking about. So ROI, right? How do you measure the efficacy of what you guys are doing from a programming perspective?
Yeah, so understand the drugs will work. I always have to say that because like, will they work, will they not work? They will work. Right, but you are seeing the RX waste in current programs is super high.
Okay.
So people who are on these drugs are only going to be on it alone for about 3 months, and then they start to kind of sputter on and off, on and off.
Okay.
Right. So from an employer benefit perspective, making sure that if you're going to offer these drugs, you're offering it because you want people to improve, not because you're just offering the benefits. It's too expensive. So ROI is me saying, hey, look, I can measure your biomarkers. So A1C, which is a 3-month average of your blood sugar, a 1-point reduction in A1C is the equivalent of like $700 saved in a plan. Cool. If this person had an A1C of, let's say, 6 or above, we drop them to 5 or below. They're now below pre-diabetic standards. They're good. Their functioning metabolism is saved. So biomarkers aside, just being able to save in RX waste. So people on this program are, I want to say your guys' terms, PMPM cost.
Yeah, welcome to the insurance industry, by the way, these acronyms. So PM, so per member per month.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Per member per month cost and waste is about $49 per person.
Okay.
So if it's already going to cost you $50, you have the program cost and then what the waste is costing you. That's astronomical. So right now, we are not in a position to be able to say what is the direct ROI between weight loss because it's too early. I don't think anyone can say that. Weight Watchers, Noom, no one can say that yet because no one's rolled it out yet.
Okay.
How we calculate ROI in the immediate term is what we're saving in waste.
Okay. Yeah, well, the prescription waste, right? Because what you're assuming is there's perhaps going to be an over prescribing of these drugs, and or they're prescribed appropriately. However, they're not coming along with any long-term behavioral modifications. So they'll work in the short term. There'll be a fluctuation of adherence. And then over the long term, probably a high likelihood of the recidivism where they'll gain the weight back or maybe even more of the weight back because they don't have that suppression of that signal, right?
I mean, think about it logically, right? I've quieted the noise. And for an extended period of time, you have no noise. Everything is wonderful. You've lost the weight. I've not taught you anything. You don't understand how macros influence muscle and why muscle is important in your metabolism. So you're probably not working out. There's been no behavior change.
Yeah.
All I've done is quieted the noise and give you a flamethrower to just extinguish fat. But what people don't understand is if I have this supercharger, because that's what these drugs are, they're a supercharger. I'm supercharging the rate of fat burning or your metabolism in general. If I'm not lifting, if I'm not eating to nourish muscle as a primary organ, I'm going to lose that muscle. If I lose that muscle, I've now blunted my ability to metabolize on the back end. My metabolism is shot because muscle is the primary metabolizer of sugar, fat, right? So if I have less of it, I'm at a disadvantage. So let's say I'm on this drug on and off for 6 months to a year. The plan stops covering it, or somehow, for some reason, I stop having access to it, and I now the noise comes back. And now it doesn't happen immediately after you stop the drug. So you have like a 4 to 6 month latency period where the drug is still kind of in your system.
Okay.
But once it's fully out, all of the noise comes back. I have less muscle, which means my metabolism is less effective. And I have no way to maintain this level of muscle or this level of body mass reduction that I've achieved.
Right.
Right. So when the noise comes back and I'm eating the same way because no one ever told me to change. I never knew how. I'm going to gain it all back. And now it's going to be harder for me to lose it because I have less muscle.
Okay.
I think employers really need to understand that. And that's very pivotal because if you're just going to offer this and not give people tools or at least the understanding of what to do, you are legit throwing a ball and you're going to watch it fall and hit the ground. It's like throwing an egg. You're just going to splat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's true too. Like, you mentioned the metaphor of putting a supercharger on. You can't just throw a supercharger on top of an existing engine without retuning that engine and making sure the power curve is appropriate and the right fuel air mixture. Not to get too technical, and I'm not a huge car guy, but I kind of understand it. However, if you were to do that, just plop a supercharger on top and then not change anything else, eventually that engine's going to explode, right? Because it's not been appropriately tuned. So you have to fine tune the individual and you have to fine tune the body with that supercharger on top of it. So how are you guys putting that guardrail or those protocols or requirements in place so that both of those things are happening at the same time?
Yeah. So working with PBMs in particular has been, again, because our value prop is being able to change and influence a population's metabolic related illnesses and health, but also the ease of it. So I want a broker to be able to, now understanding how you guys work, it's a very much a client-trainer relationship. Everything that you guys have built is built on trust. And I would say ease and deployment. Okay. So the thinking was we work with PBMs to create a back-end system that has PAs in place that kind of puts these guardrails and the structure around this program. Okay. So in order to get to the program, typically there's always PAs in place for drugs that's expensive, but most PAs are going to be, I would say, a BMI of 27 and then one outside, or I can always forget the name, one health-related illness. So that can be like hypertension, high blood pressure, etc. Okay. We typically work with PBMs and the broker to say, okay, what makes sense for this population? Yeah. What does that employer want to cover from a percentage standpoint of their population? So what we've done is, okay, instead of BMI of 27, which I have an 8-pack, I am 6'5" with muscles, I have a BMI of 27. Okay, yeah. So
you would technically qualify then, is what you're saying, on the standard.
100%. Yeah. So if you're thinking about it, if I have a trip coming up and I don't want to work out and I just want to go lose a quick 5 pounds, and my company's offering me this drug with no kind of other limitation, I'm just going to get the drug and shoot that up, look good for my pictures, and then I'll probably stop taking the drug. And when the holidays come and I eat all the things, after the holidays, January 1st, supercharger, and then I'm going to go on my merry way. Yeah. So the PA is in place to make it to where the people who need the drug have access.
Okay.
So BMI of 30 to is it comorbidities? You guys' terms.
I think I would classify those as
Two comorbidities.
Yeah.
And we have a step therapy in place to where you are going to get a less expensive weight loss drug first.
Okay.
You're going to be in that program for 3 to 6 months. We then will do, the person will then go and see their provider, and they'll have a consultation, and the provider will say, okay, this intervention is working, or we need something else.
Okay.
For the people who aren't losing weight, who have seen no kind of BMI reduction, weight reduction, A1C reduction, they would then titrate up to semaglutide.
Okay.
And they would stay on that for the duration of the year. And at the year mark, we would reassess again.
Okay.
But the goal is to, and the whole kind of, all of this is predicated on their participation in the BioCoach program.
Yeah.
Month to month, that PA is in effect. So if they are in the program and they decide not to kind of go through the modules to schedule learning, and in these learnings, we're teaching them what they need to know to be on the drug, to be able to flourish.
Yeah.
So when the noise comes back, they have a plan.
Yeah.
You know, if they're not willing to participate in the program, you don't qualify for the world's most expensive drug. I mean, you have to put it that way, because I mean, you at some level you have to invest. If I'm saying here's this TikTok video where I'm going to award you for the participation, not just in the drug, but still in BioBucks, so you still have the same rewards as everyone else, right? And I'm teaching you how to get the most out of it in the same way that I am looking at my phone and Apple gives me instructions on how to use the latest updates. Same thing, teaching people on how to nourish their muscle, teaching people how to kind of organize their eating, their behaviors around this lack of signaling. Just because you're not hungry doesn't mean you shouldn't eat.
Right.
And just because you only want a little bit doesn't mean you should only have chips today. And you have to say it that way, because it is real, because people's behaviors are always kind of predicated on convenience. And even now today, if I'm on semaglutide and I see a muffin in the hall, I'm gonna eat the muffin, come back in here, keep having this conversation. Unless I know, I need a protein offering because muscle is going to help me retain this and aesthetically put me in a position to look the way I want to look, or I perceived myself looking like before I took this drug.
Yeah, yeah. What I like about that is it sounds like kind of a weird way to say it, but the drug is almost the dangling carrot to incentivize that change, right?
Yeah.
These are popular drugs. You're hearing about them all. Is Ozempic a semaglutide, or is that a GLP-1? I forgot the difference.
Same. So Ozempic is semaglutide. Mounjaro would be tirzepatide.
Okay. So, but either way, what I'm saying is, like, again, so pardon my naivety there, but see it on TV, coworker, neighbors talking about it. I want this drug. It works. I read all about it. It's everywhere. I want it. Okay, well, if you want it, hold on. Hold on a second. Let's make sure we know that it is appropriate for you if you obviously meet the criteria. Oh, by the way, if you want it too, you can have it, especially if you need it and you qualify, but you also have to do these things too. So the dangling carrot somewhat acts as a motivator to get the people to do the behavior changes too, right?
And what am I dangling? Like, they want the drugs. I'm not. We don't offer the drugs. Right. So you have other programs that will offer the drug and the lifestyle intervention. But the goal is to be able to come to an employer and say, we are highly motivated to get them off this drug. And it's in our business model. And here's our process. But I'm only dangling this carrot in front of you because you want the expensive carrot. So because you want the expensive carrot, here you go.
Well, and I think people also need to associate, and I think our industry has done a bad job of letting people be aware of how much they might be costing their company money, right? Like, there's this, and again, we talk about this a lot on the show, but you have the insurance card. My insurance is that blank check, if you will, or that limitless credit card where I swipe it and I get the things I need because the doctor says I need it. I swipe it, I pay my portion, my employer covers the rest.
Right.
The covers the rest thing is the thing they don't think about, which could be tens of thousands, if hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So what you're saying is, hey, you want access to this drug that's going to be expensive. Cool, fine, you qualify. All we're asking is that you do these other things too, that in the long term are going to make sure that drug is most effective for you, minimize perhaps the downsides of it as well, and then give you the tools you need to actually be better quality of life for the long haul. You know, is that so much to ask? And I would say the answer to that is rhetorical, is no. But people don't necessarily understand when they want this drug, what that means to the employer's bottom line, especially if 100 people in the company want that drug all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money, man. It's the reason why premiums are the way they are. It's a reason why healthcare costs so much, because there's a mindlessness around the actual cost of those things.
Do you think, though, that they should be concerned with that inherently?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, because their premiums are a direct reflection of the actual cost of the claims dollars themselves. So again, and there's a lot of other things that are outside perhaps relevant to this conversation, but incentivizing members to go to certain providers instead, or to get a procedure at X location versus a hospital. There are thousands of things you can do to properly incentivize really good consumption of healthcare.
Right.
If you get your entire population at a company to do that, to feel like they have skin in the game, you can reduce the premiums, you can increase the quality of the benefits simultaneously, but they need to be aware that that's actually what's happening at scale. Most of them are unaware, and I think even the industry has designed them to be unaware. And just people think, oh, I just have to react to premiums going up. I have to figure out how to absorb the costs. I have to worsen my deductibles, all these things. It's just because they've been trained to look over here and not look over here, which is the root cause.
ClaimDoc is a medical claim auditing and member advocacy company. We provide fiduciary services to employer-sponsored benefit plans, and allowing them to create an environment where we ensure that the benefit plans are being charged in a fair and reasonable basis.
My business is basically people, and it become a real simple transition. We thought it was going to be far more complex. I've saved, we'll say, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I could not say enough about ClaimDoc.
I think what you are outlining is enrolling people in the process as kind of trainer and coach, but saying, hey, look, this is how you can make an impact, a positive one. I think when you start getting into like HIPAA and how like Susie costs the company X $1,000 a month, Susie, and I know that's not what you're saying, but I think if you, Susie, I do agree with you that they should know, but then the employer then has to invest in interventions like culturally something has to change also. You can't say like, yeah, you cost a lot, but we're still going to bring in donuts for the office party. And
we're not talking about singling out a lady whose son is a hemophiliac, right? We're not talking about that, but we're talking about what can we do at scale that is sort of de-identified, is not specific to one person, but does change the behavior of the company at large to the benefit of everybody, right? So if you can say, hey, if you go over here instead of here, collectively, if we stop going to the ER for sniffles and start going to urgent care or use telehealth instead, we can draw a through line to go, well, this company saved hundreds of thousands of dollars this year as a result. Guess what? In December, premium holiday. You don't have to pay your premiums in December. Everybody wins as a result of just all of us deciding we're going to make a simple change. And it's not punishing or singling out any one individual for that. But I think what you guys are doing is just sort of inverting the process to make sure the incentives are struck correctly and actually give people tools that are valuable that they can take with them, even if they go to another company as well. This is them as a human being poured into by an employer and actually building them up, which I think is great. One thing we haven't really covered is I think you were talking about earlier, the AI perspective or the actual technical stuff. So everybody wants to talk about AI, and everybody's using AI, it seems like, to some degree now. So how are you guys going to use that to sort of supercharge, to use upon your protocol for the future?
Yeah. So right now we use AI to kind of personalize the coaching experience. So things like meal plans, and even now, like you can pull out your phone, put in parameters for ChatGPT, and it'll spit you out a meal plan. And I've tried this millions of times, and as a trainer, knowing what I know, it's pretty accurate, right? AI does the same thing. We have a kind of in-depth intake process for everyone who uses the app, just so the machine has an opportunity to get to know Spencer. And once it knows Spencer, it can then make recommendations for Spencer, even on what kind of guided learnings to go through. Obviously, in a B2B kind of environment, we kind of will guide the learnings based on what the population need is. So if everyone is looking at how to eat properly under time constraints, that's going to be like the first module we go on, along with a guided kind of structured program for a year. But AI at a micro level is there to help answer questions and to make precision type recommendations for you, the individual.
So like, could I go in and be like, hey, I know I need to get 25 grams of protein with this meal as an example, but my only options are Starbucks or, I don't know, you insert fast cafe here. Will it go? Well, can you ask almost an intuitive question like that, and it might recommend go get a hamburger patty or something to that effect?
100%.
Okay.
And I think BioCoach's value, I think, is in the future of AI, because we are a tech company first.
Okay.
So our kind of mindset is centered around how do you take AI and harness the benefits of it. So yes, you can say, okay, hey, at a bar with my friends, only meal options are X, Y, and Z, and I'm planning on having a drink, but I don't want the calories. What should I do? And it will spit you out a very detailed, this is what you should do.
I love that.
And again, like, I I saying that because I can hear my broker friends like, oh, sure, but like, you got to try it and see. And the proof is in Chat GPT now.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see like Microsoft use it, and it will change the way healthcare, I think, is presented and administered in the future by far, because it's precision care. It's now taking data points on me, the person, and then giving me specific outcomes based on what I need.
Yeah.
Right. So it's no longer this kind of model where you have symptoms and based on the symptoms I predict. It's more so based on your behavior I can predict.
And specific to you, right? I think that precision medicine, I featured a guy not too long ago, Nick Glimsher, with a company called Blue Jeans, and they do pharmacogenetics, which is precision medicine to determine how will my body respond metabolically to certain drugs. Is that drug risky for me? Is it useless for me? You can get that level of precision in prescriptions, right? Then you and I were talking about wearables before this, like the Whoops or the ring,
the Whoop, the Oura rings.
Yeah. So how precise can we get into monitoring of blood sugar and monitoring of my heart rate and my not only that, but perhaps my blood pressure in the moment, all these things, my response to a 2-minute cold plunge in the morning.
Right.
Like, I think the level of detail and data that we're about to have access to is going to be off the charts to where really there are no excuses at some point, because all the data is there and we've made it as simple as possible for you to make good choices. Right. So how do you see, I know you use wearables yourself, but how do you think that is going to find their way into kind of the employer world and employees and creating change at scale within an organization?
Yeah, I think, like I said, we are a tech company first, and data is important. So I think what you'll start to see is companies coming out with these bio wearables, because it informs the user on what they need to do in real time. It helps kind of guide the learning and make it more targeted and specific to me. Now I'm interested, I buy in because I have feedback in real time of how this affects what you're saying. But from a data standpoint, I think for employers to be able to measure ROI, if I have things like your fasted glucose, if I have your A1C in general, if everyone's wearing a CGM, if everyone has
What is a CGM? You mentioned that earlier.
Continuous glucose monitor.
Okay, I figured it was some glucose.
100%.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's going to be the patch that you see on people's arms.
Yes, I've seen those.
Yeah, and it's giving them blood sugar readings in real time.
Okay.
Right now they're extremely expensive. So you and I couldn't get it, or we could, but we'd be paying a car payment to get it each month.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's expensive. But the price is coming down, and I think as it goes lower and lower, you and I will have access to that. And I think as a fitness enthusiast, we are incentivized to know more about us, because we care about how we perform, we care about how we look, and to have more data points that will help me take action on that, I think it's huge for me. Now, how many people participate? Well, if you have an environment where everyone's participating and then you're incentivized through the corporate party because premiums have gone down because everyone's healthy, and now it's this like company-wide thing to be healthy on top of achieving your metrics and your KPIs that you have in place, I think that then becomes something special, but you can measure that ROI directly based on how many data points each person is wearing.
Yeah.
And then AI can augment that.
When I told you, I've been really adamant of going on feel and my intuition, and if I feel a certain way because I follow this protocol or wake up at this time or work out at this time of day, I go, okay, that's correct.
Yep.
You've inspired me though to add a little bit more precision to it and actually think about it more qualitative in nature, right? So whether that's through an Oura ring or a Whoop, or even like switching my workouts from the evening to the morning, you've almost got me convinced that I need to do that, man. Especially just to add the cold plunge to the routine. But it's like just being a little more precise, a little more intentional. We're both athletes, right? So we're probably a little more in tune with our body than the person that's not as athletic. But that doesn't mean the same outcomes couldn't apply and the same behavior change couldn't apply for them.
Right.
And I might even argue it's more beneficial to them because of, like you said earlier, when you work with just an average person that needs lose a lot of weight and you see it happen in real time, you're really making a monumental change in their life.
Yeah.
And it's noticeable, and it could literally alter the course of their life as a result of that.
I think these things, I mean, Whoops are cool and they look cool, but they provide people with insight and mindfulness, just like you said, on their body.
Yeah.
Because you think in your day, you're not thinking about, you may be thinking about how you feel, but you're ignoring it to get through to the next task, deadline, whatever. And I've noticed this just in training at Lifetime, like my high earners, it's always go, 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 go. And you have to kind of put these metrics of these measurement opportunities in to slow them down so they will think about it. And so they will take the behavior steps to kind of get change in these areas. And by measuring it, you can kind of see the outcome. It's not to say pass or fail. It's just to say, where are you on the spectrum? You know, because like a car, we use the car analogy. Cars have miles on them. They age. Your new car doesn't operate the same way your car with 100,000 miles does. Same way as when we age. You know, so making sure you're engaging in the proper behaviors to maintain your equipment is key. And if an employer can do that and has a environment and a culture of that, again, that is just, you are influencing someone's life. You're influencing their kid's life. Yeah, I get off my soapbox, but I truly believe it.
No, what I love about
volumes.
this is that, one, the passion that you have is genuine. I love that you've kind of come outside of health insurance or the benefits world into this world with a different perspective, right? And I don't think there's any reason that we as an industry should avoid having deep level conversations about nutrition, about fitness, the role that they play from an employer and employee relationship, just sort of rethinking the way that we treat benefits in general, I think is really healthy kind of dose of perspective. But I want to get your perspective kind of before we close up, is like, what do you think about this whole insurance industry, man? I know you're kind of new to it. Goods, bad, pros, cons. What do you like? What do you dislike?
It's like the Wizard of Oz, I think, or the Matrix would be a better example.
Yeah.
You have this veil that, as the participant in it for so long, you just don't think about your benefits. And I'm relatively healthy, so I'm like, I avoid hospitals like the plague because I have my own feelings. But I think when you kind of peel back the curtain and you're looking behind it and you're looking at the greed of it and how everyone is getting paid on people being sick, it's gross.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is gross. And I don't vibe with it. I don't like it. I would never be that. I almost shame anyone who's profiting from it in that way. You can make a profit and be a good human.
Yeah.
It's just my personal feelings.
All right, man. I love coming from you. I couldn't agree more, but I'm glad kind of the way you position it, because you do have an outside perspective. It's hard with it when you're within the system, like I've been for 15 years, to always see how egregious some of the behaviors are and go, that is gross. It is gross, because there's this sentiment, well, it just is the way it is, and it's kind of always been that way, and we're doing our best, and it's like,
it have to be though.
No, hold on, it's gross. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad behavior. And I think it takes fresh set of eyes looking at it. I love the infusion of technology. Again, I love the infusion of health, nutrition, and fitness into this world as well. And I think it's only going to be a good thing for our industry. So why don't we do this, Durrell? We've talked probably well over an hour, but I'll give you a second, just sort of closing thoughts before we jump.
Yeah, so my founder would kill me if I didn't do this. BioCoach.io/Spencer, if you want to learn more about semaglutide.
Wait, I got my own backslash?
100%.
Yes.
All things AOMs and how we are trying to kind of save employers money. To all my broker friends, I train a lot of brokers, believe it or not.
Do you?
A lot of brokers
have
hit me up on the side, like, yo, help me. So to all my broker friends and future broker friends, if you want a training program, I know a lot. I will do it for free. I only ask that you participate. Don't ask me to do it if you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think there needs to be, in our industry, in insurance, in employer groups, to make change, I think you need to organize environments in a way that love can be demonstrated and deployed within that environment. And I hear myself, it sounds cheesy, but it's true. I think if people are in environments that are filled of love and productivity and self-improvement on a scale that is not me versus you, but me versus me, I think you can really cultivate a spirit of camaraderie that will only affect your bottom line in a positive way.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I think you're absolutely correct. And I think this industry, no matter what happens, is better for you being in it, and guys and gals that are like that may be listening that want to help attract smart minds, people that think differently, people that are passionate about health, passionate about all these things. This industry is going to touch everybody's life, whether you like it or not. It's literally 20% of our country's GDP. And so you can either be mad at it and be, kind of a victim of it,
right,
or you can come join in one capacity or the other and help us fix it, right? And the 100%. More people we attract to come fix it, the better off we're all going to be. So again, glad to have you, man. Thanks for coming down. I don't think this will be the last time we talk about all things health and fitness.
Not. This is fun.
We're going to go do what is the test here in a second where I have to do crisscross applesauce, get up and get down? Yeah.
Can I talk about the book real quick?
Yeah, please. Yeah, and then we'll cut it. Anybody that wants to hang out, the podcast is kind of done, but we'll keep recording just for the sake of it. Yeah.
For those of you looking for a functional way to kind of improve your fitness tomorrow, there's a book called Built to Move by Kelly Starrett. He is a world-renowned physical therapist, wrote the book Supple Leopard. Everything he talks about is movement as health, and he organizes it in a way to kind of boost longevity.
Okay.
Built to Move he has a set of, oh my gosh, my brain is buffering. We'll call them, he calls them, what is it? Pulses? No, it's a set of kind of standards to follow.
Okay.
So each standard equates to your longevity and correlates to a longer life.
Okay.
So one of the things he has is the sit test. So the challenge is from standing, you have to come all the way down with no hands to crisscross applesauce.
Okay.
Sit down, crisscross applesauce. And the goal is from crisscross applesauce to be able to stand up. And the grading scale is on 10. And standing up and coming down, however many points of kind of assistance you need, that's a minus grade.
Okay.
So if you have 8 or above, you're good. Like you still need to practice. And we'll go over that later, but you still need to practice, but you're good. If you have a 6 or below, meaning you needed multiple points of assistance, they correlate that to a lesser lifespan. So things like hip mobility, flexibility, and leg strength, you need to improve. And so he gives you different things you can use to improve those metrics, like the couch stretch, like squatting, like spending more time on the floor. People don't spend enough time. We all spend time in chairs, in these awkward shapes.
Yeah.
Spending time on the floor forces your posture to be put in and organized in the correct position. So yes,
we're about to see. Test. I mean, we're not going to record this, but we're about to see where I am on the scale. Yeah, maybe get Nathaniel to handheld.
We'll do it together.
I'm really scared of what my score is going to be, especially with my old soccer hips, man. But Durrell, this is awesome, dude. I think again we could have recorded a 4-hour podcast, but it is what it is. Really appreciate you, man, and we'll pick this up again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let me get enough space.
Yeah.
I'm going to cheat. I already know I'm probably putting at least one hand down. All right. So here.
That's why I wear stretchy pants.
Okay.
Oh shit.
Okay, it wasn't terrible. But now, am I in the right position?
That's it.
So I have to get up.
Yes.
Do I have to also get up in the same, or can I
ideally
open up my hips?
You can, but you lose points.
Okay, so if I do, obviously I cannot get up in this position.
Right.
But if I put one hand down and get up, I'm okay.
Yeah.
If I put 2 hands.
Minus 2. Okay. Now knees count 2. Minus 3.
Oh yeah, I can get up in one hand.
That'd be a 9.
Oh, okay. It wasn't graceful, but I did.
100%. If you have someone overweight, no muscle, no legs, they need a hand, they need a knee. They're not just getting up like that.
So that was technically a 9.
100%.
All right. Because we got it.